Hello and welcome back to Karen's Colours. I'm Dr. Karen and this is my Conversations in Colour. Now last week I talked about red and blue as colours that signify masculinity and femininity, and we talked particularly about how red and blue designate mums and dads. This week we're going to look at what happens if you designate blue for yourself. But let's get started firstly with what blue consists of in language, colour idioms, in other words. Now, as I stated early on in one of my previous videos, and there will be a link below, there is a big link between colour and language, and this is why we use basic colour terms to signify certain emotional states within our lives. This week, we're looking at blue. Blue has quite a number of colour idioms, that is, words that describe various different emotional responses to things in the environment. But I've chosen a few of them here just to give you an idea of how varied the blue in language can be. So let's get started. Let's start off with some positive blues. Here in Australia, we have a saying called true blue, and basically that means honest and authentic. But there are other positive blues. We could say as clear as the sky is blue, basically meaning that something is also quite valid and positive. Or we might be talking about the big blue, openness, expansiveness, massive space available as a result of visiting the sea. And of course, we always have our blue-eyed precious offspring that are always a positive blue. Then we've got some classy blues, blue chip stocks or blue ribbons or blue stockings. Now, blue stockings actually refers to intellectual women. And of course, blue suits refers to upper middle class men. We have blue bloods, in other words, royalty. And then we have some not so classy blues. And these, of course, are the blue-collar workers, which can be both male or female, although originally blue-collar workers referred mainly to men. Then we have some surprising blues. Once in a blue moon means very rarely. Out of the blue, something that is unexpected is happening. A blue note is something that enhances a piece of music. Blue sky thinking can be either creative or aspirational, but out of a clear blue sky, sometimes we can see rainbows. Then we have the organisational blues. Blues are a call to action. So go blue can refer to a whole range of things. And in fact, in America, it's used quite frequently to signify action for some sort of charity work. We also have a blue book. Again, this comes from America. And here, a blue book is a place where one writes down the things that one needs to know in order to pass an examination. In Australia, a blue book is more often just a record. Then we have the boys and girls in blue, and along with them, the blue wall of silence. Sometimes positive, sometimes not so positive. We also have blue states in the USA. Now, these are the ones as of 2023. They change from time to time. In other places, like here in Australia, we don't talk about blue and red states, but blue is actually the colour of conservatism, not of liberalism. Then we have tedious blues. Blue Monday, those days when you'd much rather the weekend was a bit longer. Feeling blue, bit of depression, feeling down. Hold my breath till I'm blue in the face. This is exasperation, unable to get what you want. Stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea. Choices don't allow you any real options. Then rushing round like a blue-assed fly. Well, that's all about being able to do nothing while looking incredibly busy. And then somebody's talking up a blue streak. can make you feel like you've got the blues. We've also got angry blues. Having a blue here in Australia means having an argument. Turning the air blue, colourful language. Screaming blue murder is needing to be heard above all else. Light the blue touch paper. Well, you do that and you create an explosion of some sort. And then we have illness blues. Being black and blue means you are bruised all over. Blue around the gills, maybe one too many drinks. Suffering the blue devils, that often is associated with some sort of intoxication that is now being removed from your body and you really don't feel very well at all. If your lips are turning blue, it's a sign of cyanosis, which is not a good sign for your health, as is having blue blood. Again, a sign that not enough oxygen, good chance that you might not survive. And then we have a number of miscellaneous blues. Here we have rocking the blues. It's usually a good night out. After which you might decide to hoist the blue Peter and take off for parts unknown and new. You might even watch some blue movies while you're there. And if you indulge in too many blue pills, then you might end up with the baby blues. And there we have it, a number of blues in our idioms. So let's now turn to a colour reading. But before we begin, I need to create a caveat. Of the thousands of people for whom I have done colour tests and colour readings over the years, all of them have come to me for a specific purpose. They've wanted something to discover how to manage their lives a little bit better. And as such, it means that the questions that I have asked, which I mentioned in an earlier video, are vitally important. The questions I have asked are all to do with how that person is functioning in the real world now and what they need in order to function better in their own terms. Of those thousands of people, most people have chosen the colour blue in their reading somewhere. When we look at those who are discussing or choosing a colour for their strengths, there is a vast majority that have chosen blue on blue. Now, we already know that the colour blue is associated with a myriad of different ideas, everything from peace and calm and happiness and contentment, right through to boredom, ennui, and lots of other things that may sound a little less spiritual, a little less comforting, a little less in terms of the things that they would like to accomplish. But since we're looking only at those colours that have been chosen as the colours of a person's strength, blue tends to have more positive connotations than it does negative ones. So let's have a look at what this means. Blue occurs both top and bottom in this particular reading. The bottom is those aspects of a person that drives them, the things that they need in order to be able to function. Those things that are designated by the colour on top, which happens to also be blue this time, are those things that have to do with what the person actually does. So in this instance, blue on blue has to do with being able to create calm and harmony within their lives, because that's the drive, that's what they want out of life. As a strength, this person is constantly capable of pursuing happiness or contentment in terms of peace and quiet. And in order to do that, they need to work hard, because blue ultimately, being a feminine energy, has to do with get on with the job, don't complain, and above all, definitely do what you are told. So what do these people choose as the biggest obstacle they need to deal with? Well, once again, there are a number of colours that appear as obstacles for people who've chosen blue on blue. But the two colours that seem to predominate in this particular type of reading are the colours green and yellow. Now, green associated with blue we'll look at firstly. Green is all about new growth. It's about change. It's about beginning again in a different direction. It's about finding freedom. It's about exploring the natural environment. It also has a lot to do with what your heart desires. Because if we're looking back at the chakras, green is the heart chakra. So it has to do with values, the things that you find are important for you in your life. So if you like blue and have a problem with green, then there is a problem with getting those things in the real world, those things that are associated with green, which is freedom and the ability to do what you desire to do. And for this reason, we can now look at blue and green as if they were combined in the same person. So here we have green on blue and blue on green. What does this mean for the person? These two sets of skills are different, even though they use the same color combinations, but they also are the crossing between a person's strengths and a person's weaknesses. And as such, they tend to make the person fail at whatever it is that these two sets of colors represent. So if the person is blue internally, and that is they're seeking and striving for contentment and quiet and above all peacefulness in their lives, and in the real world what happens or what they're doing is green, that is searching for new pastures wherever they look, aiming for something that will give them comfort in their own existences because they are out there looking for what it is that makes them feel better, then those two colors do not represent things that the person can do comfortably. Similarly, if the person is green internally, that is constantly striving for something new, striving for those pastures that seem to be beckoning and saying, look, you know, everything's wonderful over here. How about you join us instead of staying where you are? In the real world, they are restricted and simply cannot make that leap. So therefore, blue and green together as a single entity becomes problematic, just as the symbols of blue as a strength and green as a weakness have also demonstrated problematic issues. So let's now turn to yellow. Yellow and blue similarly can produce problems for the person who is showing that yellow is the issue that they need to deal with. So what does yellow represent? Well, we know it's sunshine, we know it's clarity, we know it's excitement. It is all of those things that make you feel a bit butterfly-y in the stomach. The chakra that is covered by yellow is the chakra that has to do with digestion. And that digestion isn't just of food, it's also of anything else that comes into the body or into the mind. So it's also the digestion of information. So for yellow to be a problem, it means that learning is a difficulty. It means that there is a problem with being able to understand and accept new knowledge as it comes in. And again, just like when we take green and blue as a crossover group, we can also take yellow and blue as a crossover group. So we have yellow over blue and we have blue over yellow. When yellow appears over blue, what we have here is a constant seeking of new information. This person wants to appear happy and sunny and quite entitled to all the good things in life. But internally, there is a consistent dissatisfaction. This person doesn't actually learn how to feel good about themselves. The only pleasure that they get is to be constantly seeking for more and more and more information. So they're constantly learning. Actually, surprisingly, the yellow over blue makes a good teacher. Why? Because a teacher needs to constantly be exploring their environment, learning new things in order to understand their own place in society, but also to be able to explain those new learnings to others. Conversely, when we have yellow internally, we have fear. Yellow internally always has to do with that butterfly in the stomach feeling where things you know are not as pleasant as they could be, but instead you are inclined then to fear what it is that you don't understand, that you don't know. And in the real world, if we have blue there, then what that is showing is that even though you have these butterflies, you are pretending in the real world that everything is calm. No, you are not worried about anything. No, there is no issue at all. But these colors tend to fail that person's ability to function effectively, because the more they try and keep the lid on things, the more they try to keep things calm, the more likely it is that stress will be increased internally. And that internal stress always strays through. Now, one of the interesting things about the blue and yellow is that blue and yellow, when we combine them, become a green. So even though the person who is blue as a positive thing and yellow as their obstacle, tends to have real problems trying to find that wonderful space in the real world that allows them to feel free. So blue on a yellow is a restriction, an inability to find freedom. But there's a third combination that also exists in these three colors, and that is the combination of yellow and green. For people who have chosen blue as a strength and green as an obstacle, or blue as a strength and yellow as an obstacle, the yellow and green doesn't generally appear in a reading. In fact, in all of those readings I've done, very, very rarely does it ever come up as an alternative. But it's an important one, and we'll be looking at that at a later. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick foray into how the colour analysis establishes strengths and weaknesses and how they combine to make a particular type of person. If you've enjoyed this video, then perhaps you might like to give it a like, perhaps even subscribe to the channel. It's up to you. Certainly, I'll be back again next week with another foray into Karen's colours. I hope to see you there. Bye.